I do wear glasses, but I'm too vain to wear them, and they look really stupid with the smartphone. Okay, check this out. Okay, say I have an ISP number, right? I'll be uploading this video. Excuse me. I'll be uploading this video through an ISP number. Okay, that's your track digit. I know all about computer science. There's nothing I don't know about computers. I know it's just a bunch of bullshit too. Binary. I've explained this before. Okay, binary is just abacus. They're parsing the bit, right? So what we come up with is computers aren't really capable of AI, and that's true. It's all socked in. It's all predetermined behavior. There's like two algorithms, right? One is for catching words we say in lingual. The other is for deriving. And they don't do it very well because the human brain does something called ruled and globing. Last time I checked, computers are not biological. So no, they may not do that. We can take different types of sentences and mix and match them and come up with a deep thought. So computers are really useless when it comes to AI unless they're completely socketed. Okay, but anyways, what I was getting at is, okay, say if I'm Googling Google and I look up myself to see if I come up on YouTube, right? If the server, especially if I have a flatted Trojan, which is a partial, no, what it does, a Trojan that only runs in and out of the I/O. Okay, so if they choose to Trojan my smartphone, they can see my smartphone, so I can come up in my own search. But anybody else does it from a different ISP, say from across town or from a different city, my videos wouldn't show up for other people, but they could in fact show up for me. So they could be actually, this is technologically possible, they could actually be fooling me into thinking that my videos are on the internet and they're not. I don't think so. I really don't think so. But it is technologically possible, people. When you get a packet downloaded onto your smartphone, I've had my location flicker on and off because the smartphone won't allow that. As soon as the location comes up off the cell phone tower, it shouldn't come on ever. If I see it flicker on, that means someone is trying to locate me, seeing where I'm at. Like if I'm in the middle of an activity, location, little upside down teardrop usually. Okay, yeah, the cell phone's actually pinging and trying to get a radius on me. All right, that's the level of what the government's fucking with some people. I'm sure of it. They're actually, tracking people with their phone. They've installed a modified Trojan through download packets to their smartphone through their cell phone carrier. So, it's just good to know that smartphones are not safe, people. if you're really gonna talk shit about the government, the snail mail, really. They just really can't touch letters. They can't. There are people around that will just squeal and squeal and squeal some more if they ever saw like a handheld X-ray scanner or a sonic, anything sonic that could check letters or content of letters. It's possible with sonics also. So but is that terrible that we'd have to go to that length? That we just can't really trust our government. We don't have any more payphones around. Payphones want a credit card now. Well, legally they can't be credit card only. Legally they have to accept quarters and dollar bills, cash. They can't make that legal argument. You cannot force people to use a system of electronic system of monetary system that can be tracked at any time. They know has the serial number of the card, or even if it's there's something as like a charge card you bought at a store. If they swipe it through the point of sale, that number could go to the government, so they know immediately that someone bought one of those like Visa charge cards, refillables. They know what store, so they if you use that card, they can pick up the line, hear your voice, and now they know who you are, right? So they completely, whether I think it's all intentional to stamp out dissonance and dissident behavior, because they want to make our country just like Europe, where free speech is just kind of a question. It's there, but then you can be retaliated. In Europe, yes and no. It's minor retaliation, but still, it's fucked up, and they know it is. So, I'm gonna say it's both sides. They have this idea that if they don't have the moral high ground, they're just not going to allow you to have the government that you want to have. And that is the way they think. They are completely subverted from reality. It's just they exist in a balloon. So, that's what I'm trying to talk about here. Is I've seen some stuff on YouTube. YouTube demonetizing people. It's like, whatever. The fact that advertisers have a say in content is completely incredible. It's kind of a sick example, but America Online, when I was on there way back, when we had modems, and then we first got the first cable modem, right? They allowed, some very perverted chat rooms, and and they were trading pictures. But the idea was, if they're chatting about things, there's people in there monitoring, right? So if they're talking about criminal activity, and they knew where they were at, well, they could track them down, and then local law enforcement would take care of, perverts. So, it's gotten away from that. It's like, it's no longer a law enforcement issue. It's like social justice issue, right? And this idea that we can just say, well, this is not within our morals. This is not within the community guidelines. An older guy said, community guidelines, That's what they used to outlaw pornography way back when. It was community guidelines. Those were the exact words. So you got to think about that. You know, can they outlaw pornography? Well, no. I don't especially enjoy it, but then sometimes I do. Yeah, interesting. Okay, but the idea is, ideas always come around full circle with the false morality. So morality is live and let live. You own your life. Other people own their lives. You make an agreement not to impinge on each other. That is morality. That is morale. The mores, the politeness of society. Domination, injury, harm. Screaming at each other. One's calling another person whatever it may be, a godless, disgusting person, and the other person saying, well, your God idea is impinging on my freedom somehow, that your words are actually harming me, so now we're gonna call the police on words. And this is where moralism, or really false morality, just goes completely off the rails and destroys government. People don't get this. I mean, people really need to wake up to this idea that putting your idea of how people should live and then superimposing it on other people to force them into your idea of life, as long as they're not harming anybody, can you really make an argument? Not really, because then you're trying to own somebody else, right? And then we have theft, right? We keep stealing from each other, tit for tat. That's like emotional. Is it blackmail? It's kind of different, I think. It does go there also, but then we have this idea where we're just taking away from each other, trying to rip each other's souls out in a metaphorical sense. So, if we get back to liberty, and if we get back to the true meaning of liberty, which is people live their own lives, and people aren't being butt-fucked crazy. Yeah, I use cuss words because they work. We got to get back to this idea that, the Old West, before the assholes showed up, the Old West was great. They said, well, there's guns and blood out in the street. Okay, yeah, there was that. Right, they did have lawlessness, people shooting each other on the street. But then if people really want to shoot each other on the street, should they? Not really. But there's an interesting thought on that, but that's for another discussion. Okay. The brothels, the drugs, there was drugs back then. The alcohol, the gambling. What it was is, people using government. They don't talk about that. People coming in and using government and saying, well, there's all this vice. There's just a problem here. And that really wasn't the problem. Those people coming into the government were the problem to commandeer all those. They wanted to set up brackets for all that stuff. It was a free system mostly, and then people coming in to get their pinch. And then, so that's a government problem. That's not a people problem, right? So we see that, clamping down on alcohol and prohibition, well, look how that turned out. People say, well, we'll never do that again. because look at all the crime it created. You know, it started all these mobs. You know, and it wasn't just Italians. There's Irish mobs and there's German mobs. You know, there was African American mobs uh, down in Harlem. You know, that were starting to make money that way and generating a lot of income. And then even after Prohibition, they're still around. So long-lasting effect. But then we prohibit drugs, and people say, "Well, what's wrong? What's going on here?" Well, we prohibited drugs. We stopped nature, the nature of people. That they want to party, they want to have fun, they want to use drugs, just like they want to go out to bars and drink. So then now we have all these, we have to undo all these convictions because we're imprisoning, half the black population of men. All right? And people say, well, what was the problem? Well, we prohibited drugs and we didn't regulate it like we should have. It could have been heavily regulated and taxed, and it would still been a hell of a lot better. Because you take a lot of that money and you cure addiction. I mean, a person, I consider that cured if a person just no longer uses drugs or alcohol, and they had in the past, and they're not going to slip up again like they used to. Unless there's people who have a severe problem up here, severe psychiatric problem, and they're always going to slip up. They're always going to be close to the edge, right? We know that. But then you have cure rates of 50% where people are just no longer using drugs whatsoever. All just ties in. All this idea of morality, which is an excuse for being a tyrant, and then using a government to create terror on other people. Is that fair to say that? It is fair to say that they're creating terror on people when they know that when they prohibit something, it creates something so bad and so awful that it's hideous, and eventually society has to reconcile that. So they create the hideous situation. And they say, well, it's just God's plan, or, well, those people shouldn't say hateful words towards me. They deserve to get shut down. Either side, coming up with the same idea of being a tyrant, really. And then we see now left is like, the antimony. That's an interesting word. In the dictionary it says it's like a type of rock, but that's not true. It's just this type of condiving. And when it affects women, okay, now these leftist women now want to shut down like strippers, sex work, all that. Well, because they've lost something in their life, and now they have to take something from somebody else, right? That's the antimony in the system. That affects men in a different way, usually, than women. Women would want to just take away, whereas the antimony of oh, my battery's going low. The antimony of men is stressing other men to a breaking point, right? And that's all about stealing on the trade, I don't really know what to say, unless America stands up and says, "Hey, look, man, libertarian policy or classical liberal policy of maximizing people's liberties." And let's get rid of the false morality, and let's go with it. First step, again, keep on going back to that, installing logic. If you use logic and you trap it correctly, guess what? You have a libertarian government. So libertarian government is the logical outcome of using traps, processes, usages and processes. Well, yeah. How else are you going to get around that? Rationalizations, outright disambiguation. Yeah, probably. Anyways, thank you.